Thank you so much. So, starting with, we have Ms. Rupan Olak from Pi Ventures, Mr. Venkatesh Modi from Bloom Ventures, Mr. Vishesh Rajaram from Specially Invest, and Mr. Vinod Shankar from Java Capital. Now, moderator for the day is Mr. Ajay Sethi. He's a partner at Axel Ventures.
Hi, good to see you guys. Thank you. Hi.
Ajay, I hand over the panel to you, and we look forward to hearing some really good insights here. Thank you.
Okay, does this work? Oh, it does. Okay. Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks for waiting. 45 minutes delay, but we are on to the last session. So hopefully you can hear some good thoughts from the panel members and then go home. So first of all, the panel discussion itself is investing in robotics in India. And I'm Ajay Sethi. I'm advisor to Art Park, which is one of the hosts who is supporting this particular conference. I have a non-profit organization which is building a robotics and automated science labs. In addition, or maybe the big reason I'm here is I've been with Axel Partners for last 10 years. Axel is a VC firm which has supported some of the well-known companies. You might have heard some of them: Flipkart, Swiggy, Book My Show, Urban Company. Axel also does little bit of deep tech investments, not much, but a few companies in that are Sigtuple, which is a medical devices company, Consure, Axio Biosolutions, and a few more. Right? So, but what more importantly, I'm here to ask the questions to the panel. So we have a very senior and very experienced panel members here. Before we get started, maybe I'll request each of them to one by one introduce themselves by talking about themselves and a little bit about their funds. Right. So we can start from you.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Venkatesh. I'm part of the investment team at Bloom Ventures. So just to give you some perspective, some of you might have heard about Bloom. So Bloom actually was started 10 years ago by Karthik and Sanjay. Back then we were investing out of a 100 crore fund. Currently, we are investing out of Fund 4, which is a $290 million fund. In total, we have a little over $600 million of AUM. Some of the companies which we have invested in, which a lot of you might have heard of, are the likes of Unacademy, Dunzo, Slice, Spinny, Purple, Turtle Mint, right? Particularly within deep tech, we have been very active, and within the first fund itself, we invested into companies such as Grey Orange Robotics, Carbon Clean, and then we invested into Pixel. We invested into a medical device company called Beto. Then we went very heavy into EVs as such. So invested into Euler Motors, Battery Smart, Electric Pay, Vecmocon. Other robotics investments include Nico Robotics, Ati Motors. There's ethereal machines, and there's Flow Mobility as well. We typically invest somewhere between $1 to $3 million. So seed to pre-series A. We have 3 offices: Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. I'm based at the Bangalore office.
Is it audible? Yeah. Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Rupan. I'm with a fund called Pi Ventures. We are an early stage deep tech fund. We invest primarily in deep tech companies, so essentially looking for disruptive technologies that are being used to solve big global problems. We started back in 2017 with our first fund, and our primary focus was to invest in applied AI, which has evolved since to include other forms of technologies like material science. And we are sector agnostic in our approach. We invested in sectors like space tech, enterprise, of course, biotech, healthcare. In robotics, we have an investment called Autonomy, which is fully autonomous robots for last mile delivery. So that's our thesis, and we do primarily seed to Series A, about $1 million to $2 million on an average as check size. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Vinod, one of the founding partners of Java Capital. Java Capital is a pre-seed seed stage fund focusing on deep tech and climate. I fortunately share some investments with all 3 of us. And we've done some of investments like Agnikul, Sinler, E-Plane, Oculo Aerospace, Pre-Image, and a few more like even attempted at alternate proteins. So we're looking at investing in disruptive, path breaking breakthrough ventures. That's something that we look forward to. Typically, first checks of around $300,000 to $400,000, and we could potentially do follow-ons on top of that. And this is our second fund. This is currently about $10 million. That's what we're deploying out of currently. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. My name is Vishesh Rajaram. I'm a co-founder at a fund called Special Invest. We're a deep science and technology fund doing 0 to 1 investing. We typically invest pre-product, underwrite technology risk, and try and support capital to 2 or 3 rounds. Certain focus areas include robotics and advanced manufacturing, space, climate, biosciences and health as well. And of course, a little bit of software. We've been in existence now for the last 7 years. We're investing out of our second fund. Thank you.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll have maybe 2 or 3 rounds of questions and then hopefully take half an hour for doing that and have 10-15 minutes in the end for you to ask questions. So if you think of something, please note it down. In the end, we'll have time for that. So I'll open up this discussion from a few questions from my side so that we get this going and then maybe ask you for asking yours. So first question from my side, and I think just to give a perspective overview to everyone, would be what do you think are some of the most interesting, exciting opportunities in robotics, whether you look at Indian market or global markets? What do you think are the most interesting opportunities from your point of view? So again, maybe we'll go the same way, start with Venkatesh.
Sure. The first robotics investment that we did was in Grey Orange Robotics. So just to share some context also about how that investment came about. So we met Karthik and Sanjay back then, met Samay and Akash, and they were BITS Pilani graduates. And they were actually just trying to building robotics kits for educational purposes, and then they started repurposing that for warehouse automation. So that's when they met Flipkart, one of Axel's star portfolio as well, and I think that's how the project started. So in a lot of ways, I think robotics investments in India, there is no framework that you can actually use to say that this is what we will invest in. Typically, as and when there are not many robotics companies in India, maybe you can count them actually, and even if they are actually dispersed across sectors and across use cases. So in a lot of ways, I don't think we as investors have a lot of choice into what we would like to invest in. In a lot of ways, you're reacting to what already exists in the market. But typically, if you were to ask what is the ideal kind of investments you would want to do, probably something which is building from India and targeting global markets. One, because I think people don't really have the ability to pay for such solutions in India. And that I think is a very, very big learning of being investors for a long period of time. So I think that is the big qualifier which we have. And outside of that, I think as long as it is a horizontal, vertical, it could be across industries, it could be across different use cases, it actually works. So actually there is no filter as such. In a lot of ways, we are open to looking at anything and everything. As long as the founders are excited about the technology and there is potential market, it works.
Got it. Rupan, maybe little bit next level, maybe certain specific areas that you think are more interesting, and maybe we should talk about that a little bit, please.
Sure. Just before getting to the specifics, I think at the heart of it, if you have to talk about opportunities for robotics, it has to be at the cusp of business use cases which are at the cusp of automation and economic benefit for the customers. So not like a cool new tech toy, but something that has an ROI. So that being the fundamental, I would say, the approach towards robotics, I would say certain areas like foundational AI models, which can actually power robots across multiple use cases, right? So it works as that intelligence layer for multiple use cases, be it logistics, be it warehouse automation. So that's something very interesting. Second, I think one is, of course, you talk about the entire robot, but we could also talk about some of the components that go into the robot, right? For example, new generation sensors, better sensors, cheaper sensors with better resolution. That's an interesting area, maybe new way of doing actuators. So second level is the component level. And I would say third level would be at, if you look at most of the robots out there, traditionally have been focused on automating repetitive tasks, right? So pick this up and put it at the next level, right? So very repetitive. What we are looking for are intelligent robots, which are way closer now to human capability, whether it's in terms of navigation or it's in terms of perception or manipulation. So that dexterity is something that we are looking for as the next generation of robots. So these are some of the areas that we are pretty keen on, and this could be across multiple sectors, be it healthcare, where skilled labor is an issue, surgeon fatigue is an issue. It could also be in agriculture where labor is an issue. So multiple sectors.
Got it.
I think, interestingly, in one of the sessions, right, the NVIDIA director was mentioning that what's his dream story for the next conference, and he said, we want a kitchen robot, take a recipe from. I think that's possibly like the extreme, or like something that hopefully will happen in some years. But that's like the opportunity set, I feel, from what we are today to what potential is. And this is a joke in our portfolio company that it wants to do that. Similar, for example, right, we keep telling, that's like the holy grail vision, if they can eventually achieve it, and that's like a vision we kind of look forward to.
Yep.
So, and fortunately, NVIDIA person mentioning it was like very interesting. So I think the opportunity set is really large, and it's kind of left to a lot of your imagination. But I'll also give some places where I think, it could get very interesting. Like, for example, with the evolution of 5G, low latency, faster data throughputs and slicing, that's going to lend itself for higher data throughput, which is required in, lot more of the robots which will work with human beings, which is like a cobot kind of roles, right? We're not just looking at robot in its isolation like it's today in most factories. It's sitting in a box circle. That's not going to be the case. I think there's going to be a human being within the box, and both of them are going to operate it together. That will like increase machine and human efficiencies put together, which will lead to a lot more productivity than what we're currently seeing just with pure automation only on robotics. I think the man with the 5G, 6G evolution along with robot, right? I think I see that as a great space area, especially in the industrial side. The other area that I'm actually keen on is like, I think all of us today don't use too many robotic solutions, except for maybe, we drive a car, we're still doing it. It might get automated if you have to look from that angle. But cleaning your house, you've seen Roombas and other robots. I think that's also a very unexplored space. Maybe the developed markets, at least everybody has one robot in their house on an average. I think India still lacks very less. I think as per capita income goes up, we will want robots. The maid is already a trouble in a lot of places. You don't get all those pieces, right? We will see some more action. These two areas as a larger themes is what I would think of to keep an eye out on the use cases at least.
Got it. So Vishesh, before you jump in, I'll just point out one quick point here. So in India, we sell around 3,000 robots per year. This is 2020. In China, that number is 50 times of that. So in US, the number is 10 times of that. So I think the market size that Venkatesh and Rupan you mentioned, I think is a very important question. But to you, Vishesh's question, but this question is the same. What do you think are the opportunities? What are the most interesting things from your point of view? But the question I want to add a little bit is, do you think the hardware will get commoditized more and more, and therefore a software layer is what you look for? I think, Rupan, you kind of mentioned that, but I want you to also weigh in on that particular thing. Is hardware only product interesting, or you look for something more when you look for interesting opportunities?
I'll keep that in mind. I'll come back to that. I think there are two large themes that pick our interest. One is in the field of, let's say, warehousing or industrial use cases. How do you bring in greater dexterity to robots that are already there?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the holy grail is to have a robot that looks, behaves, and functions like a human. But that may be farther away and harder to achieve, though there are some examples of, the Boston Dynamics or agility that are working there. But is there a middle ground to that? Could you have 2 or 3 robotic hands that sit on an AMR or an AGV and pretty much function like a human?
Mm-hmm.
So, and what could that dexterity allow robotic hands to do in an industrial setting? That's one area. The second theme is, okay, full automation, autonomy is further away. Are there avenues where you could do partial automation? Particularly in healthcare or surgeries and deliveries, right? Where you could use robotics to do high precision surgery which may still be done by human at the back, but still allows you to do a quantum leap of service or delivery or healthcare curing, which otherwise would not be possible. Or let's take the transportation sector, right? You've got, at least in other parts of the world, there are fixed lanes for long trucks to drive long distances. Can you do something there where you could automate it remotely and manage it? And there's an interesting company here in Bangalore that does a little bit of that. So I think these could be possibly the next level that could pick interest.
Right.
Coming back to, I think, your question of, hey, is software going to eat hardware in the world of robotics? If I could sort of rephrase it. My belief is I think you need a full stack game. If you truly need to stand out, your software has to be deeply tied into your hardware. And it has to be built in like that. Of course, you'll have a lot of costs. You could be buying things off the shelf and building. But at least a fund like ours always talks about, hey, what is it that you know or you do that nobody else can do or is very hard for you to do? And hence, from that lens, we end up seeing full stack. But in that full stack, when you're doing full stack, you don't need to innovate on everything, right? Everything under the sun. There will be, I think software has always been the path for democratizing hardware. And that will not be any different here. And the fact that you have ROS, the fact that allows for navigation, and the fact that it's an operating system on top of an AGV and AMR is a classic example.
Right. Got it. So I'll let people ask the further questions on this. I'll move on to the next set of questions. And before I do that, I'll just mention one anecdote. So this is a famous and well-known thing, but back in 2011 or some, actually I don't know the date, but when Sequoia invested in WhatsApp, this is 2011 if I'm not wrong, famously what they saw was there was a small group of Russian and Ukrainian immigrants in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley, who were using WhatsApp very, very heavily, but no one else was using it. But that heavy usage of that one product by one set of users was enough to convince them to invest in WhatsApp. And of course, it went on to become the tool that we all can't live without. So based on that, my question to all of you is, when you look at a startup, what criteria, what metrics do you factor in when you are making decision to invest or not to invest? Maybe we'll reverse the order this time and, start with,
So our style is, we come in very early, right? So there's not a lot of proof out there. There's no product. There's, of course, a lot of vision and a lot of the founder out there. Yeah. So it's very founder-centric and founder-heavy. So I think we ask ourselves this question on, what does the founder know that most folks don't know, don't believe? That will be the moat that will allow them to go build a product. That will be a moat that could become a business moat. So for us, it's very founder-centric. Of course, it needs to be a large TAM, this, that, and the other, all the usual 101s of investing, but there needs to be something that they know which they can build something off, which is very hard to build.
Got it. Yeah. So the number one most important point is the founder and the skill set of the founders.
I think I have a slightly different style. I think each I think it's actually individual, not
that's why we have four different members.
I say the market always wins. So if you draw a good founder against a market, right, and always market's going to win. If you do a 4x4, so I usually get very excited about the markets first. And I'm not saying the founder has to be bad or something here. Of course the founder has to be good or great, but I think the market has to be really exciting and it has to be large. And there has to be a potential vision to see a solution there somewhere in that market. We're not going to build for nobody, right? Then it's it's a useless product. It's going to die. So I usually get excited by the market first. And then, of course, I go look and see, where the founder is headed. What does he know? The insights that I don't know or anybody doesn't know. And I think that gets excited. So I think that is my style. I'm just giving, my partner's style will be very, very different, actually. Yeah.
Fair enough. And I would add to that. So I think, obviously, you mentioned team, you have mentioned market. Those are two important criteria. I just want to bring out other things. So typically you look at, let's say, a differentiated product, right? Or you look at, let's say, some particular mode, some uniqueness that the team has, some insight that the team has. So along those lines, different business model, any of these that play into your thing, what particular criteria gives you saying, yes, this is interesting, I want to move forward?
Yeah, so there's not one criteria actually. I'll sit on the fence and I'll say both these criteria are super important. But just to add a little bit color to the team part, right? So one is if you look at robotics, right, fundamentally we believe, yes, in India you can build a good company, but to build a huge company, you have to look outside, develop markets where there is actually a business use case, because in India, labor is cheap, right? So I think it makes more sense to sell the products and solutions outside of India. In that case, founders' global GTM capability becomes super critical. So that's very, very important to us. Second thing is on the differentiation in the product, right? If it is a commoditized product, anyone can build, you can build in China and sell it at a cheaper rate. So it doesn't make sense, right? It's a race to the bottom. You're only going to be competing on price. So that's very important. Where is the differentiation? What are you building which is 10x better than globally what's available out there? Why would anyone buy? And what is the defensibility? If not maybe 5 years, but at least in next 2-3 years.
Right.
I think one fundamental thing that's very important when you're looking at robotics is the economics, right? So why will a customer buy? So the ROI has to make sense. So when we are investing, of course, it's very, very early, but we still like to get a sense of how much benefit the customer is going to have with the robot versus, let's say, a human. And what are the, in steady state, what are the unit economics going to look like, right? You can't have a BOM which is higher than what you're selling it at, maybe initially, but is there a path to get to profitability in next 1 or 2 years? So I would put differentiation as well as the economics part as an important component of the equation.
All right. So you've taken 2 more. So team, market size, differentiated product and business model. And little bit you hinted on GTM, which is go to market, which is marketing. Venkatesh, what would your take be? Everything exhausted or something else?
So I'll just add some context to what I'm about to say. See, typically in India, right, deep tech is something which is not really out there. Like not many people are working on it, and investors, it's probably not on their priority. I think some of the top investors who invest into deep tech are here, right? By Java, Special. So from that perspective, when we also started investing, what I think one thumb rule which we have is key. Whoever we are investing into, the founder, it has to be a founder market fit. And I just want to expand more on what Vishesh just said. The founder mindset matters a lot. So typically knowing that capital in India is for deep tech is not going to be much. Is the founder actually willing to survive multiple valleys of death? Because at multiple points in time, talent is going to be an issue. Market is going to be an issue. Money is always going to be an issue. And we've seen that with all our companies, right? They have struggled to survive, and some of them have actually died as well. So from that perspective, that is a big filter. Like how married is the founder to the problem itself, which really matters the most to us, I would say. And post that, I think you can keep expanding on that. And if there is really a deep tech angle here, has the team actually built this deep tech? Because what happens is once you start to launch this product in the market, there will be a lot of feedback that you will receive. And at that point in time, you need to have a solutions mindset and not a product first mindset, right? You actually should be open to, innovating and adding some, let's say, elements of service also to make sure that you're solving the customer's issue. You can't say that, okay, I have one product and I'm going to replicate this for 1 million customers, because it's not like a consumer or a SaaS product where it works like that. But deep tech is like solving a problem and there are multiple things that you can't control. So I think that is important, and that's why the founder, whoever it is, or the team who's built the tech, they should be very open to innovating further as well. So I think these are some of the filters or metrics that we have, and I think abiding by them has actually been helpful for us.
All right, good. Okay, so actually we are 6:10, so 20 minutes, 25 minutes into it. So I'll ask last question, and then we'll open up the floor to the audience to ask their questions. So my last questions is, again, we'll switch the order, but based all of you would have talked to hundreds of startups, hundreds of entrepreneurs. Several of them actually would not have made the cut, right? So based on all your experience, I'm sure there are some patterns that have emerged, that things that you think are not, the reasons the companies are not ready for you to invest money in. So based on that, and based on your own criteria by which you make your investment decision, what would be one advice, or maybe what's the largest gap that you see in the startups, or what other way, or what is the one advice you would give to the folks here who are thinking of doing a startup that they should be careful about when they start thinking about building a company? Right. So Venkatesh, starting with you.
Yeah. So I think one piece of advice which I think anyone and everyone who's raising any kind of capital should know, that I think VC is a very glorified type of capital that is available in the market, and it represents only a very small amount of capital pool that is available, maybe like less than 1% or something. And it is the most glorified in some ways. So I think people who are raising money for whatever they may be building, they get very disappointed when they don't receive VC funding. Someone rejected me and all that. But you need to understand that VC also is a business model in itself. Like, there is a particular way of, let's say, a particular set of companies you can invest in. So they scale 1000x over the next 10 years. So I can return my money, like my investors' money back to them, like multiply that by 5x, 10x, right? So in a lot of ways, I think whoever is raising capital, they should be very open to exploring other forms of capital as well. And this could be debt, this could be anything from banks, this could also be like say philanthropy, right? If you are really passionate about what you're building, I think going out there, writing to, let's say, 100 billionaires in India or globally that this is something I'm working on, would you be able to shed out, let's say, $10,000 or something? It is going to make a big difference. Like, even if 10 of them actually reply, you have like seed funding right there. So people, I think, give up easily and they get very disappointed. And then it is a very virtuous cycle where you say, okay, I will come back to you in 3 months, 6 months, and then you do what the VC says, and then you go back and, oh no, you invested in a competitor of ours and the timing is not right, the market and all that. Like, so in a lot of ways, you can't really know what the VC is thinking. So I would say, like, just focus on what you're building, like continue to build, and capital will find its way to you. And obviously you have to be diligent with that as well. But I think like, don't really, VC is the most glorified form of capital, and like, just don't follow that.
Okay, so if I understand right, Venkatesh is saying explore other forms, including angel investors.
Exactly.
Who
There
might
are
understand that.
there are grants as well and all that. Like, multiple forms of capital available, and people should be open to exploring that.
Got it. Rupa?
I think if you're bold enough to decide to start something and lucky enough to have capital coming from external parties, make sure you pick the right partner, because robotics is a very, very tricky space. Looks super glamorous, but it has a lot of challenges, more challenges than, let's say, any other startup would have, because it's hardware. Cash is always a problem. Business model is always a problem. So bottom line, if you are lucky enough to get more options, pick the right partner. Pick an investor who understands, is patient, and is committed for the long haul.
All right.
I'll go a little on the other side now. I think we've seen 3 waves of tech is what I think, like the Infosys, Wipro, people building software, outsourcing, and the second wave of product like Flipkarts and, Freshworks of the world, right? I think we've done that really well. I mean, logically, we should do something more than that, right? I think that's what all of you guys are also in the room. And I think that is a logical thing to do. I feel that's the opportunity. My advice is go ahead and do it. And it's not that I'm just saying, just because I'm a VC or something like that. I also met a bunch of entrepreneurs who think, who worked at like Rolls-Royce for 10 years. They say, I want to build a startup now in the space that I understood. And that's because I think as a country, we are in the right space, in the right mind, and capital is available. I thought today morning, we have $50 billion of public listed tech companies. That's like visible. So why should you not all build, right? Something, it could be robotics, or it could be something else in the deep tech or the innovation space. I think my advice is go ahead and start, if you're thinking about it, this is the opportunity to do something really large in the next 2-3 decades. And you are right here, and everything's happening, and money is also there, is my view, if you're a really good founder in the right market, yeah.
All right, so I guess your example of Sinler, the company, two of the founders, both were National Instruments, they learned a lot and then they left and they started a company which is now...
Bangalore has so many aerospace companies, right? Just Bangalore. Imagine all the chip designers, 3 lakh chip designers sitting in Bangalore.
Yeah.
Why should 10 people not quit and start one more fabulous company and do like an RF chip? Why are we buying it from Qualcomm? Sorry, the sponsor is here. let's do our stuff, yeah. Why not?
All right, Vishesh. Yeah.
The point he makes is brilliant. This is a great time to build. Mm-hmm. You have to dream big. That's the job we all have. If there's one single piece of advice I'd like to leave you with, it's to make sure you talk to your customers enough. Not just when you start, but through the entire journey. Please remember, whatever you're building it for your customer. The more you understand them, the more you understand what they need, the better the chance of you building something they need. So invest time on that more than anything else. Try and understand the persona, who, what, where. Specifically to robotics, as Rupan said, it's always an ROI business. You're replacing a human in most cases. So it's very important you talk to customers. Do that as much as you can at all points of time in the life cycle of your company.
Got it. Hey, one follow-up question. Actually, sorry about this, but the question is, since you mentioned talk to your customers, I think what happens is in India, a lot of money is available because I work with ISC, Art Park, and IIT Bombay incubation centers. A lot of money is available, which is government grants. And government grants naturally pushes people to start working with government or defense, right? So if the early stage teams start talking to defense or government entities and they become their customers, do you think it's a good thing, or do you think it kind of buckets them in this Indian economy, which is not large enough to support the kind of startups that I hear some of you at least are looking to support? Anyone wants to comment on that?
I don't think it's small. That market is very, very large. Building for the defense, if you actually look at the budgets and their plans to do India procurement, it's a very sizable opportunity to go after. So it's clearly not a bad thing. What you need to think of as a young startup is a cycle time to get feedback and build. And if you think there is someone in the government that's able to do that with you, absolutely do it. The point is, in the early stage of life, I'm building something, I'm going to the customer, I want almost instantaneous feedback.
Right.
So that I can come back to the garage and rebuild. If that cycle is 9 months, then I'm toast. But if that cycle is within an acceptable range, it's brilliant.
Okay. Anyone else comments on that?
I think you should just have a fallback is what I think. A pure defense. You don't start with saying, I'm going to be pure defense, but it might happen in some cases. I've seen that. But have another alternate, possibility if you can. And if you're a pure defense, I think that's the challenge, like what Vish is saying, right? I've seen that, and there is a little bit of hesitancy among investors to think, okay, pure defense. I think 5 years back, they wouldn't even looked at it. But I think now there is little opening there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think in US, there are a lot of companies, huge companies that have been built just on defense. And now there's some VCs also very focused on backing startups that are...
US economy is built on SBIR, STTR. These are programs that have supported early small stage companies forever. Defense has mandated support them. I don't think we yet have such a structured system in India, but it's evolving.
But we have grants and all that have started opening up. So of course, we are at any point in time, we are way more nascent across the ecosystem with respect to developed economies.
Sure.
But it's opening up. But I would say one challenge is that when funds have taken money from, let's say, development organization, DFIs and all, then sometimes defense ends up being on an exclusion list.
Right.
Tactical issue, but in that case, can prevent some of the funds to invest in companies focused on defense.
Got it. Mindful of that. Okay. Venkatesh, any
One thing is, I think whenever you're dealing with defense, like I think Vinod mentioned, there is a concentration of customers that happens. So in that way, de-risking is critical. And outside of that, I think it might be helpful for such companies to have close advisors who know how the system works, because it is a very bureaucratic system, and you don't really know the reasons behind a lot of decisions that may happen. So I think having that sounding board might be helpful in navigating decision making as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things Art Park provides as an incubator within ISC. So, but with that, I'll open up the questions. Anyone have questions? You can ask questions. You can direct it to anyone, or you can ask open-ended questions. I'll let Pallavi to navigate this, or someone, or Pallavi, you can see better. So maybe the first one right in the middle. Yeah, you can go ahead. Keep your questions very short. Don't give a big, right? Sharp, pointed questions, please.
You say that,
So you say that outside of India there's a more buying of robotics, and we have to go and sell out more. It's better if we sell out of India because of the market. But if we go down a bit lower to the level, I think most of the startups or the product ideas that come up, it's from a college product or a hackathon product. So and that eventually gets to like as a startup or a product that is to be sold out. So, but when it comes to college students or the university students, they aren't in a position to fund themselves enough to learn the relevant skills. So, like, how can you say, like, how can you have a way to empower them so that like things become a bit more easier on their part, not always that they have to like empty their pockets and all the time, so just to learn stuff. But like again, everything that what all the startups need is us engineers, and this hall is, I guess, half of full of students as well.
Sure. All right. Anyone wants to take the question, or you want? No, I will not talk about that. But see, okay, one of us can answer the question. I can answer this question. Next questions you can answer. So, quick answer to your question from my side is that projects which are hackathon projects are for learning something. There's a big gap from their capability building to business problem solving. Typically, within all organizations, whether it's ISC, ArtPark, or IITs or NITs, there are incubation where entrepreneurship cells which take you to the next level, which is saying, here's a technology problem, what's the business problem, and that gap is what you need to bridge, so to say. So from moving from business, a tech, hackathon solution to a business problem, there's a journey, and there are many resources available online as well as within every institute. So I would suggest that would be the first step, rather than jumping all the way to doing a startup and then raising money. So step by step, dhire dhire. I mean, you'll get there. So.
On to that. So, you mentioned about students and hackathons and projects, right? Now, recently, in the last, I think, the COVID period, we've seen a lot of startups by 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds having billions of dollars of valuations and getting funded by student-led funds or campus-led funds. But as senior VCs, wherein you invest in either, let's say, serial entrepreneurs or big TAM companies, how do you view student-led startups or student-led funded startups on those lines?
Do you want to talk about Pixel?
Yeah, so I think, within our portfolio, there were 3 companies, all deep tech, student run, and we backed them when they were actually students. So Carbon Clean back in 2011, Grey Orange 2013, Pixel Space again 2018-19, right? So I think having Bits Pilani was a big connection, at least for Grey Orange and Pixel. Typically, I think right now, given the network of all the colleges, whether you're in Bangalore, Hyderabad, wherever it might be, networking with people is very easy. So in a lot of ways, I think if you are really building something and you are really passionate about it, and you can basically go and convince someone that it really is a big problem and you have something real and you're going to do this for a very long period of time, people will have faith in you and people will believe you. And I think all 3 companies right now are one of the top 3 deep tech companies within our portfolio as well, and within their domains that they operate. So I think access to any resources is never really constrained. Right now, we are in a very much digital first era where reaching out to anybody who's at Harvard, Stanford is never really an issue. So I think being passionate about what you're building and really going out there and hustling is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Capital and all resources will probably find their way to you.
Yeah.
There's one from ISC, Digantra also, right? Students straight out of college and raise money from Peak and others. So really possible right here. SID had incubated the company.
Correct. I mean, Pallavi, so I think it's now student-led startups are definitely supported. But just as a caution, Pixel story, if you look at that, it was not easy for them to raise capital, right? So it does take effort to raise capital, and angel investors were the ones who supported them first. Yeah. So I think that path needs to be explored because someone from your domain understands the area better and typically is the first one to support you. So with that caveat, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. So when we are speaking about these hackathons and converting it to a product or solution into the market, most of us are importing components from other countries for building robots and then solving a solution here. But on the longer term, our views on the indigenous production of robotics spares and parts so that everything can be sourced inside India to make a complete robot and export it. On the longer term, I'm expecting how it will be, the market will be, does that have a scope in India?
Yeah, certainly. We're also hoping that in long term we get everything in India itself. Most of the components actually are available, but let's say sophisticated sensors like LiDAR and all, you still have to import. But in the future, considering the government's push, things should get better.
Yeah. My take on that is that first is the business problem, which is what problem you're solving. The importing versus building in countries an optimization problem. So first you validate that you can solve someone's problem, then you want to reduce the cost or you want to do some, then get into the, indigenizing it and substituting it from, off-the-shelf product to your own inbuilt product. But first, business problem, right? I think there was a hand there, back there, next to the, okay, mic is, okay, go ahead, please.
Hello. Sir, this is Muthu. I'm a co-founder of a startup, which we are running for last 5 years. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you.
Sir, actually I have a question for a common panel. Whether it's like a binary answer, like whether you bet on a founder or a technology. That would be my one question. And then the next question would be like, you see, when it comes to robotics, it is totally a future. Like it is opportunities at future. Maybe now our current market is getting to adapt to it. Not exactly the whole market is available. Like today, if you invest in a deep tech, tomorrow, at least in 1 or 3 months or 4 months, you start getting subscription or something onto that. But in a robotic space, it's totally a difficult space, like where you need to depend on 2 or 3 things, or like where you see opportunity at late, which means that ROI is like we have at very later stages and compared to other techs. That is what I see. So in this case, how do you see like robotics, whether you see only as an ROI point of view or you see it as an opportunity point of view? So like it's like 2 different questions. One is like how you bet on a tech or a founder, or my second question is like whether you bet on a opportunity or your ROI. What would be your call? Like it is like I want your personal opinion, or it's not like a general quoted opinion. I want your personal pointed opinion so that we know as founders like how we can travel further. That is a simple question.
Each one has a view. So you ask for personal views, I'll give you mine. I think the world I live in is, if you back a great founder, they'll find the right opportunity in the right market and evolve. So is it founder technology? I think technology is a byproduct of founder. So I would pick founder. Then I think your second question was opportunity versus ROI. ROI is a byproduct of opportunity. So it's opportunity then.
Correct.
Yeah, based on the opportunity, there's an ROI.
Correct.
If you have to pick opportunity or ROI, I'll pick opportunity.
I think we'll all agree with that. I think founders will always find the right way. So, and I think most startups pivot in the first year or 2. So I think you got to have good founding teams. So I think there's no doubt for that. So
Hi.
wherever the mic has gone.
Sure. Excuse me.
Oh yeah. Okay. Bolo. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
My name is Rudraksh. I work for a startup under Art Park. I'm working a product / strategy role there. So I'm trying to understand what kind of market research is validated by you guys. Like, of course, I can use information all across the internet to find stuff here. But I would like to understand, how do you guys actually validate the information that I provide you?
So maybe I'll take that. So typically we look for public reports that's available. That's like the first go. That's like secondary research to find out, if there's really an opportunity. Sometimes, right, there is no existing market. So if you're building something like a AGV, there's a projected market, right? You know that. Let's assume you're building something new. It's like a completely new market. Then you look for proxies. What could be the potential closest market to that, right? So that's something to validate. And on top of it, you start talking to other people in the industry to validate that answer. Is there scope for a solution like this? Will that get adopted? You make all this triangulation and then arrive, and say, okay, yes, there is a potential opportunity which will grow into the future and take a shot. But markets are always tricky to get right, especially market sizes. We could be wrong, but I think that's a very tricky space, but we try as much as possible to do all the primary and secondary research to get to an answer.
Is it possible that you and I come to two different conclusions and
Yes,
are
absolutely
things
possible.
collide?
Absolutely possible. I would triangulate it here. You may triangulate
Exactly.
it here. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
How-
And that could be a reason for saying no to an investment also.
Right. Got it. Cool. Thank you so much.
Two entrepreneurs can come at very different answers to the same problem as well. So I think it's a projection into future.
But also, right, another VC might invest in you. That also, you need just one person to invest in you and believe in you. I think that also to be remembered, yeah.
Right. Not really, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm audible now. Yeah, hi. So this is Atmati Paria, and there was a point raised that the government-funded startups tend to go towards defense, although it's a pretty big market, and that there was an alternative that you will need to a pure defense strategy, right? So that if it's not pure defense, so I'm thinking, well, other areas would be like civilian rescue or sort of civilian search and rescue, maybe fire hazards or cyclone. But how would you advise to a co-founder that how is your IP managed? Because when it comes to defense, they're pretty robust about what gets out of the company which is giving them products. And if it is seen as a security risk, they might pull their hands back. So what would be your advice? Okay, like if you're building for defense, but we would also like you to have a fallback option. What should be the legality, the legal framework in which you should operate?
Vishesh and
I
Vinod, you
I
two
don't fully understand the question, but I've seen instances where people actually do the entire defense business in a separate entity, a subsidiary, an SPV of sorts. But IP is normally kept separate from this, right? IP is never shared with anybody. And I don't think the government expects you to share IP in grants. It used to be the case many years ago. They've also taken feedback. So the IP sits with you. You may want to create a separate BU entity. In a few cases, we're seeing that, though that may be for very strategic reasons to the particular department that they're selling to.
Okay, thank you.
Ajay sir, we have a question here.
Hello. Yeah. First of all, thanks for all the insights. And my question is, in the first question or somewhere, all of you said like you'd want to invest in something which is very deep tech, something like dexterous, human-like dexterous, or something like which is cobots or something. And many of the times in industry or in a setup where we don't need most of the dexterous things, we need something which gets done. Client just needs something which gets their things done. That's all. They don't need 7 degrees of freedom. If you have 2 degrees of freedom and robot does the job, fine. But the ROI is actually more in 2 degrees of freedom than most dexterous robot, because no one would buy them. So like this is kind of contradictory points. So how would you if I were to come with this thing that I only have 2 degrees of freedom robot, but the ROI is high, but it's nothing innovative. It's just a simple product. So like how would, as a venture capitalist, how would you see this, or what is your opinion?
I think both of these things go hand in hand, right? ROI, it has to make sense. There's no point, like I said, building a cool tech tool or tech toy which doesn't have any ROI. So if 2 degrees of freedom is solving the problem, great. You really don't need to create an overkill of a solution. Yeah, absolutely.
Some people who like kulfi, give them kulfi, man. Only some want gelato. You will find what you want to do.
Hello. First up, thank you guys for this insightful discussion. I'll keep this very short. How do you see edtech in this domain of deep tech, given that deep tech inherently is harder than other technologies? But on the other hand, given the dire need for constant upskilling, there's also this big there's also so much probably like money involved there, and also a lot of opportunity. How do you see that? How optimistic are you about edtech there?
What role does edtech deep skilling in deep skilling area in the deep tech area as an opportunity?
To be honest, I don't see any deep tech in edtech in deep tech. If that makes any sense.
Sure.
I think there may be an opportunity, right? Like if you look at it like large business schools or any actually like even IISc in some ways, it's like edtech, like it's actually a physical campus and all of that. It is such a big school campus, right? So I think and you're actually doing so much technology and science and all that. So I think that is definitely existent. It's just that how do you package it and how do you deliver it to the right people? That is probably what matters the most, and the content. And right now, in an age where everything is so digital and everything is accessible on the internet, how do you make sure that you actually are delivering the right content to the right people? So I think the opportunity exists. Probably you have to fit in a lot of pieces of the puzzle together to make it very lucrative for VCs to invest into it. But I would say I think it may be possible.
Yeah, and just to answer from a non-deep tech point of view, if you look at a company like Upgrad, they are building all the business on upskilling people, right? And I think one of the ISC startups called Zentik, if I'm not wrong, started by ISC computer science professor, is also trying to educate or upskill people from an AI perspective. So I think there's opportunity. How large is that opportunity? Does it stand on its own? I think that's a question one needs to do a bottom-up analysis of that, right? So you need to see how many people are willing to pay and how much are they willing to pay. That will give you a size of the market. So.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the insights. I'm here.
Where?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I want to understand the maths of investment. Like when you take money from your principals, and like what is the ratio, or how many multiple times you have to return, so that any founder who comes to you should understand that maths and like the probability of getting the startup successful, and basically what kind of exit do you look? Because see, I am a founder of a robotics company who is working into B2G space. I am into defense and railways. So I want to understand the maths, and like maybe I have first spoken to Vishesh some time back. I'm from combat robotics, so I want to understand the maths. Like it would be really interesting for everyone to know that.
I think we should spend the next 10 years together, and hopefully we'll do the math together. We'll use some of your math lab to get it right. I don't think there's a fixed math. It was so simple, we would have retired by now.
So let me attempt, and this is not what Axel does, but caveat. So typically you want to return 3x money in 10 years, right? 3x money return back to your LPs, right? So typically you want, for that to happen, let's say you want 30% of the companies, 1/3 of your companies to give you 10x return, right? So that you can do, basically you need to do the math. So return 3x, right? And if let's say only 1/3 will scale up to give you that kind of a return, then what should that each of those companies give you? Right? So I think the math is not that difficult. It can be easily be calculated, because the question is the return back to LPs is more or less given, because you have to exceed the market at which you raise capital. Probability of success is historically given, so you can actually estimate that. Therefore, I think math is straightforward. Happy to sit down with you and explain. So, but yeah, it's not that tough. Yeah. I mean, this is mota math. Whether we actually deliver that money back to our LPs, separate question. But yeah, all right. We'll keep VC math separate. But any other questions? Oh wow, there's. We should have a time limit. Is there what time? 10 more minutes, 15 minutes? It's okay. 5 minutes. Okay, maybe last 2-3 questions.
Yeah, hello. So first of all, a quick thank you. And my question is, could you please give an example out of your own portfolio of the companies that you actually invested in, and the size, the most importantly the why actually, and the second example of something that you passed on but turned out to be a good opportunity or a lost opportunity. Thanks.
So one company you invested in and why, and one that you passed down and why.
So I'll take the easier one. I'll leave the past to somebody else. I'll talk about the one I did. So of course, Vinod and I are friends, and we both invested in this company called Robotics. Two founders that were ex-NI, which is essentially a watering hole for all robotics and automation problems. They were there for 5+ years. And then they stepped out. They did a services company where they did system integration of robots. So they not only came with ideas, they went down the implementation path. I think at the end of the 10-year journey, their belief was, hey, traditional robotic hands that Kuka, Fanuc make operate with a lot of precision, provided they're trained and the environment is static. It's palletized environment, you know what to pick from where and what to place where, it's great. But the minute the environment is dynamic, non-palletized, multiple SKUs, they don't work. And one of the reasons the hand doesn't work is if it does not have eyes, it can only do what it's programmed to do, right? So then they came with this first principle approach of saying that for the human hand or for the robotic hand to function like a human hand, one of the elements you need is human eyes or vision of that of a human. That then allows you to recognize how to deal with an object. A young baby is unable to differentiate between a glass bottle and a toy, but it still knows how to grasp it. And that's just how the eyes support the cognitive ability to think and build. So that was sort of the first principle approach to say, how do we then build intelligence and vision systems that both go on top of high quality robotic hands, whether it's 2-axis or 7-axis, that's already been done and dusted, to allow for it to behave with greater dexterity without much training. Right? And today they've come a long way. They're working with GM, with a few other large auto OEMs in Detroit and some warehousing outfits as well. But it's a long journey. But the thing that got us excited was that their 8-10-year journey, learning in intelligence, was translating to finding a problem statement that was very deep and hard to solve for in the world of industrial robotics and warehousing, and that they had a path and a vision to build it. That's what got us excited.
Got it. The tougher question, what did you pass and regretted later?
I think what you're actually looking for is like anti-portfolio stories, companies that probably we passed and became big. I would recommend that you actually maybe check out Bessemer Venture Partners anti-portfolio page. It has a lot of companies and they really have crazy reasons of why they actually did not invest into it. So I think that you will find a lot of stories and companies there.
All right. Diplomatic answer.
Do we still have time? Or?
Maybe one last question. Yes, please.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Oh, you okay? Okay.
Okay. Hi, my name is Akash. I work in the machine tool industry, basically a mechanical engineer. So I have tried to implement some automation solutions for the shop floor production level stuff. So usually the reaction from the workforce is that they try to push back and they really don't want automation on the shop floor. So this is the case in the Indian market, but it is not so probably in the European or the US market. Is this situation perceived by the investors, and what do you think of it?
I think it's perceived, right? Like I think the cost of labor and the top management wants higher productivity. The lower folks, want to do what work they can do and for what the pay they get, right? So that parity, right, is as it moves up, then it'll get automated, right? Till that time, you will find this resistance, and I think there is resistance in that kind of a market even in here. I think that's going to continue unless we run out of people. I think we have a lot of people to work on, so you're going to find that still. That's why construction companies don't have a lot of tech, if you notice, right? I mean, they can have a lot of tech, right? You don't have any tech largely. So there are some industries it's going to be hard to push too much of tech, because there's not going to be adoption.
Do you think the situation will improve in the future, or as an investor, what do you think?
I think you should take the solution to where the problem is, as against waiting for the environment to change. So if you've got a shop floor automation problem that's deep and solving take it to where the problem is. If it's not here, take it to the West, take it to Europe. Like he said, there are not people there, then they don't show up to the shop floor. You have a lot of people here, we will show up to the shop floor.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think what Vinod mentioned, construction industry, there's a stall of this company called Flow Mobility right here. You should probably go check that out. They are automating movement of construction materials in a very risky environment. So that might give you some faith about like investors believing in such solutions and companies also building along those lines.
All right. With that, I think unfortunately there were more hands, but we'll have to wrap it up today. Thank you everyone for listening in and for asking all questions. Thank you. And thank you all of you panelists, each one of you, for being here and spending your time. Thank you everyone.
Guys, can we please hold on for a minute, take a group picture and leave? For people who have just stepped outside, if we could return back, just click a group picture and we could be good to leave. And if everybody could collect around the center segment of the auditorium. Hello? Can we quickly gather up and the people who are sitting towards the back as well, maybe